Okay, so the next area that you need to know about is startup cost. Startup costs vary dramatically. Because some people have tools, some people don't. Some people have everything they need, and some people don't. Also, the type of business that it's in varies dramatically. For instance, me as a writer, I don't technically have to form a business. Especially since Nevada has a free sole proprietorship, I can just do that. Um, I don't really need business licensing unless I'm taking on a bunch of clients. Um, Equipment, supplies, vehicles, tools. I don't need any of that stuff to do my work. All I really need is internet, which I pay for at home, electricity, which I pay for at home, a computer, which I already own, utilities, etc., etc. So almost everything I do is more of an accounting expense as opposed to an additional business expense. So for a lot of home-based businesses that don't require traveling, which is why online businesses are so favored these days, you can near 100% margins. Of course, people don't actually do that. And the startup costs to do it are next to nothing. I mean, if all you're paying for is some marketing expenses and maybe enough to cover the first bill of all your software, like there's no reason you need more than $1,000. Okay, so that's kind of like the best case scenario. So then the most likely scenario for most businesses is about $500 for business formation, which will cover an LLC, and then another $500 for business licensing. There are some business licenses that are way more. For instance, if you have a liquor license, I mean, you can talk. It can be up to $14,000 for a liquor license in California. Las Vegas's are like, which is where I live, are like $700 every quarter. So I mean, it just varies on how much the business licensing is. Um, but I mean, for most industries, it's fairly nominal. The ones you really want to watch out for are financial institutions, construction companies, massage parlors, anything that serves alcohol or food. Those all will require more business licensing. Equipment, likewise, can vary dramatically. And fortunately, you can pull all of that data. So realistically, purchases and you don't need wages starting off. You don't need that. That's not really something that you need. This you will. This you will. So right here it shows you you're looking at 22.4% of revenue for purchases, 1.8 for marketing, 2.1 for rent, but most, if it can be home based, you'll take that off. So then you have other costs. So, I mean, 22.4, 1.8, and 23. So you can use this to calculate the values. Basically, you want to take off the wages, profit, depreciation, rent, and utilities for the ones that are capable of being home based. For ones that are not capable of being home based, it's going to look like this. If you have employees, you'll add this. Um, so, but realistically, I think there's a better way to do it. I think there's a better way to estimate it, which is what I've done here. Um, what I've done here is I assume $1,000 for a solo entrepreneur unless they cannot be a home-based business. So you want to change this if it's not something that's a home-based business, like a bank can't be a home-based business, a gas station can't be a home-based business. This is what I'm doing is I'm assuming 6 months of expenses. So I'm taking this minus 94% of that and then dividing it by 2. And then this one, I'm using an absurd example. It's not really going to be like that. But I mean, like, to give you an idea, a McDonald's franchise, you're talking about a $2.5 to $3 million all in. So I mean, I'd assume about the most you need, unless you're talking about where you're actually starting a manufacturer, is probably about $3 million. Of course, if you need, if you have to buy a factory, then you're talking about 100 or 200 million. And if you look at let me see here, where's my barriers? Sorry, this one's going to take me a minute because I don't really use it much, but because I kind of understand most of these to begin with, and you may as well. I don't know what your background is. Um, let's try here. Barriers to entry. So under competitive landscape, you've got the basis of competition, which is internal competition and external competition. And you've got the barriers to entry. which is low and steady. So barriers are legal, startup costs. Actually, here, this is useful. I've never actually paid much attention to this. Those aren't really useful. Concentration obstacles. In this section, it may give you some information that's useful for the startup cost, but not really. So, but this will also, if you see something, regulation and policy right here, this is really helpful to know. This one, the regulation and policy, and the industry assistance are both ones that will tend to indicate cost. So yeah, just do the best you can with this one. It's really hard to show you a process on this because no two industries are alike. No two states are even identical. So it really you just kind of have to figure out what kind of regulations there are and what the cost associated with that is. As soon as you have to buy a building, you're talking about it being in the millions of dollars for the startup costs. As soon as you're renting a building, you're talking at least $100,000 between renting and renovations. And at that point, you're tied into a really long contract normally. So, I mean, it just depends. Home-based businesses are easier, other ones aren't. I'm sorry, I wish I could give you a better answer on this one. I just can't, which is why I have been so hesitant to have an admin do these.